It's a Drama, coming to you from Taranaki, New Zealand.
Hello.
Daddy, I love him!
Mother thanks you.
Right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
When you talk about emigrating to the other side of the world, the first thing you think about is visas and money and flights and where you're going to live. Nobody actually tells you the emotional turmoil that you go through when you leave a country, leave your friends and family, and sometimes know that you're never going to see them again. Did at any time did you think, oh, this isn't worth it, I don't want to go?
I had a brief moment.
Did you? In this week's podcast, we're going to talk to Maile and Brian, who have left their home in America to start a new life in New Zealand, and they tell us exactly the emotional turmoil they went through to get here.
Hello.
Hello, and welcome to the It's a Drama podcast. I'm Liz.
And I'm Brian.
And if you haven't visited our channel before, we're husband and wife. We talk everything travel, New Zealand. At the moment, we're concentrating on talking about what it's like to live in New Zealand. So today we're in for a real treat because we get to interview a couple who have just emigrated from America to New Zealand.
So they're currently in MIQ, which is quarantine. That's where you have to spend the first 2 weeks through this COVID period. And we get to chat to them. They'll let us know what it's all about.
Yeah, and their names are Maile and Brian. We met them through our private New Zealand community group, which you can learn more about if you're thinking of moving to New Zealand and you really want a strong community to do that journey with. Check out the link above. But we met them through our Slack group. They're part of that community, and we've watched them as they've gone through their journey of coming to New Zealand, the emotions that they've gone through, telling their parents, telling their friends, saying goodbye. And it's been, I don't want to be like nosy, but it's just been fascinating. Yeah. And they've been so open in telling us exactly how it felt. So I think you are going to love this show. Let's jump on in and meet Maile and Brian.
Hello.
Hello and welcome Brian and Maile to the podcast. So excited to have you here, guys. Welcome to New Zealand.
Yeah, welcome to New Zealand.
Thanks.
We have waited for this for quite a while. You've been part of our New Zealand calling community group and we've watched your journey so excitedly, your countdown. You've got your own YouTube channel that I'm going to mention later on. And we've been watching you guys go through the emotional turmoil of coming to New Zealand, packing all your stuff up, saying goodbye to your family. And now you are finally here. And there's no way I was going to let you get away without having an interview. So thank you so much, guys, for being here today.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We dreamed of this, being on your podcast.
Yeah,
I bet.
We're like, I hope we end up on a podcast. And also, just a huge shout out to your group, your Slack group.
We love them so much. Thank you for creating that space for everyone.
It's the best thing I ever did. It really is. Just watching you guys.
It's been great, hasn't it?
Yeah, you've created a real family over there, and I love it. Absolutely.
And I know you're only early into the country. You've only been in, 5-6 days, haven't you? So
to let everyone know who's watching you and listening to you, can you just introduce yourselves and let us know who you are and where you've come from in America? And let's start there.
Yeah, so I was born in White Plains, New York, which is kind of the northeast part of the country. I was only there for about 4 years and then my family moved to Virginia, and that's where her and I met in high school. And after college, I went to college in Virginia. After that, I moved to Seattle, Washington, spent about 4 years there, moved to San Diego, spent about 12 years there. And then at that point, visited New Zealand for the first time, and I'll get into that later as well. But
my name is Maile. I grew up in Northern Virginia, right outside of DC, where Brian and I first met. And then after college, I moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Then I moved to Nashville, Tennessee. Then I started travel nursing, so I've also lived in Louisiana, Baltimore. I think I'm forgetting a few places. And then most recently, Vermont for the two of us.
Right, yeah. Oh, so
what does DC mean?
District of Columbia. That's where the nation's capital is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of our slang for that area. So there's DC, the city, and then there's like the metropolitan sprawl into Maryland and Virginia. Yeah. So anybody who's from that area, it's just called like the DC metro area.
Yeah, because there is Washington State, isn't there? And then there's Washington DC as such. Yeah,
that's a good
big difference.
Yeah.
I knew the answer actually. I just wanted to make sure you did.
Do you know?
Not many people in the US probably know that, I would assume, unfortunately.
Because when we were going there, I was thinking, what DC? And I had to look it. I had to Google it myself when we were traveling to Washington DC to go see the White House,
So Brian, I'm intrigued to know when you say that you, because I know that you've chatted a little bit before, and I'd like you to expand on that you had a little bit of a life-changing experience, and it made you come to New Zealand. And that's what made you fall in love with New Zealand. Can you just expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by New Zealand and wanted to come visit. About 2016, I was kind of going through a midlife crisis. I had paid off a lot of debt that I'd been struggling with for a good portion of my life, and I was finally free of that financial burden. And I had some money saved up, and I was doing a job that I wasn't sure was what I wanted to be doing. But I didn't know. I didn't know kind of what I wanted to do because I'd done what I did to pay debt off, and that was it. So I decided to quit my job and put all my stuff into storage and take off to New Zealand for 3 months.
How old were you?
That was 38, I think.
38.
Yeah.
And what job were you doing that you quitted?
I worked for a software company in San Diego,
Right.
and I was a customer success manager, basically an account manager.
Yeah.
And I liked it. It was fun, but I just wasn't feeling fulfilled or passionate about it anymore. So I took off to New Zealand for 3 months, and that's actually what triggered this whole thing to happen, our everything. So I'll let you tell that story.
Okay.
Over to Maile.
Over to me. Brian and I went to high school together. We were pretty good friends for about a year. And then we just sort of got interested in different things and drifted apart. Didn't keep in touch.
Yeah, for like 20 odd years.
Yeah, 20 something years. Yeah. I had friended Brian on Facebook a long time ago, but it was just one of those of like, oh yeah, I remember Brian. Friend request, you forget about it. I was travel nursing at the time, and I saw Brian post something about, I'm going to New Zealand for 3 months. And I've always had a fascination with New Zealand, just seeing videos and articles, photos, and I've just always sort of been like, I would love to go there. Like, I'm very drawn to this country. So when I saw Brian post about going to New Zealand, I reached out to him, and I was like, that's so cool. I want to hear more about it. That was pretty much it. Like, we kept in touch. We ended up seeing each other before he left for New Zealand.
Yeah, I drove across country from San Diego to Virginia.
Wow.
Which doesn't make much sense because I had to go back to California to leave for New Zealand. But I wanted to see some places across country and see my family. And she was in the New Orleans area. Mm-hmm. So I drove through and met her for a night. We met in a bar.
Had a great time.
Oh, it was awesome. Just sat and talked and caught up and danced and listened to live music. And,
it was like no time had passed.
That sounds like something out of a film, doesn't it?
Yeah. A little bit. And then he left. We kept in touch because already I was like,
Why didn't you go with him, Maile?
I was in the middle of a travel nurse assignment. And if you break the contract, you get fined a bunch of money. And
what is a travel nurse? What does that mean?
So in the US, there's travel nursing where you sign up with a travel company and you do 3-month-long contracts, and they just place you in different hospitals around the US depending on the need. You make more money. You have a lot more flexibility, so you can hop from city to city, or you can extend your contract if you want to. But if you're in the middle of a contract, you're stuck with the hours they give you and what you're working. And if you break the contract, you end up owing money to the company. Right. So
that would have made for a better movie, though. If I'd been there for one night.
Wouldn't it?
Hey, why don't you come with me?
Come with me, my love.
There's a bunch of money
Goodbye,
for that
travel nursing. So Brian goes to New Zealand, and you go for 3 months. Did it cure your midlife crisis thing?
Yeah, 100%.
Did it?
I think it was Ben Nevis that did it, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Ben Nevis bungee jump.
That was the big one. That was the big part of it. That did help me overcome and made me realize what fear actually means to me. Fear was something I struggled with for a long time, and I think that bungee jump made me realize that fear was a construct of our mind that really has no power over us, and we just give it this power. But I think it was really good for me to find myself and just let go of the old way, my old personality, and find my new self, my new chapter in life.
which was me.
I'm loving this.
Which was her. When I got back, it was her.
Did you get off the plane and then there was Maile in a nursing outfit and you just said, here we go, baby. We're going to New Zealand.
I like it.
Sort of. Close to that. No, it's funny. I got back from my trip and we were chatting. We started chatting more once I got back. And she was moving to Nashville for her next nursing assignment. And I was like, hey, I got nothing going on. Do you need help moving? And she was like, sure. So, and I was living out of a backpack, so it worked perfect. So I met up with her at her dad's place, which was in Northern Virginia, and got to meet her dog, Handy, who I miss.
Yeah.
And went down to Nashville with her, helped her move into her spot. There's a lot of details in here that we'll fill you in
over drinks.
Over drinks.
Yes, definitely. Can't wait. Yeah.
But yeah, helped her move in and just never
left.
Never moved out. Her dad's like, when's he leaving?
Yeah. Is he going? You've moved in for the last 3 weeks.
So did you just decide there and then? Was it just like this dream that you had together, let's move to New Zealand? Was that it?
Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Early on in our relationship, we started talking about it. And then once we got to fly out here together, right before we got married, we visited New Zealand. And again, for me, it was the same. It felt like home. It felt just amazing.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we've never really felt like we belong in the U.S.
Yeah.
Kind of my whole life, the priorities and the lifestyle of living in the States does not align with who I am. So I've always sort of wanted to leave and go elsewhere. And then when we came to New Zealand, I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah. Can I ask?
Fits us.
Can I ask what the American perception is of New Zealand? What do Americans think New Zealand is going to be like?
Before or after Lord of the Rings?
Yeah,
and that's true.
Yeah.
Before Lord of the Rings, I don't think people knew that New Zealand really existed in the U.S.
It was like this weird concept.
Yeah.
It's just like Australia.
Yeah. It's an island off of Australia. Sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But after Lord of the Rings, everyone's like, "Oh, it looks so amazing! Yeah. It's gorgeous! Yeah."
And then of course now with COVID,
yeah,
New Zealand's like totally on the map.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, no, that's true, isn't it? Yeah. And
Yeah.
everybody wants to come now once they open those borders up again. Yeah.
Well, there's so many questions I've got for you, but I know we've got limited time. And like Brian said, we can do this again. But so you came over on your nursing degree, your nursing visa, didn't you, Maile? Is that right?
Yeah, we came over on a critical purpose visitor visa.
Right.
Which is pretty hard to get right now. But if you're in healthcare, it's pretty easy. They need a lot of healthcare workers.
Yeah.
I have a nursing job. And then we're in the process of applying for our essential skills work visa.
Right.
Which is the longer visa. We can be here for 3 years under that visa. And Brian can work under that visa.
Yeah.
Right.
On the visitor visa we're on now, we're not covered under healthcare and Brian can't work.
Okay.
Right.
Got it. And you're heading down to Dunedin, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which everyone we talk to who lives in New Zealand, we tell them we're going to Dunedin, they're like, it's so cold. Why would you want to move there?
I was going to say the opposite. Every time we talk about the South Island, people jump in on the chat, or on YouTube or on email going, oh, you've got to go to Dunedin. It's such a cool city. So I think you guys are going to love it. I think you're going to love it.
Yeah. No, I've only been to it once, like when I was working down there. I just was there for 5 days and I got to spend a morning going sightseeing, and that was about it. But what I saw of it, it felt very European. It's a nice city. I like it. It's got a nice feel about it. And yeah, it's going to get chilly, but it gets hot in the summer, cold in the winter.
Yeah.
So it's not much different than the US in most places.
And it's so easy to travel around New Zealand, so you can just go on your holidays somewhere warmer if that's what you want to do. So, yeah.
After living in Vermont, nothing is going to seem cold to me anymore.
Yeah.
It's really cold in Vermont.
Yeah.
And we prefer cooler weather.
Yeah.
So we'd rather be there
Yeah.
than like North Island.
Nothing against North Island.
Yeah.
So when we first set up this chat, I said to Brian, I really want to speak to Maile and Brian. And Brian said, yeah, we could ask them about their quarantine and how it's going. And I said, no, what I want to speak to these guys about, like I said, I've been following you on the chat, watching all your chats and everything. And it's been so fascinating and watching your YouTube videos to see actually how you coped with leaving the people behind. Yeah, how you dealt with all that emotion. And you were very, very open about it, which we really appreciate. You didn't hold back. And I think that's so, so important because it's people talk about moving to New Zealand and it's like, oh yeah, the visas and this and where you can live. No one actually tells you about the emotional turmoil that you go through those weeks before you leave, and just you have talked about that, and that's what I want to touch on today. So would you mind just sharing who you left behind in the US first of all? You know, what family you left behind?
I left behind my mom and my dad and a brother and sister, a lot of extended family, and then a lot of friends. Because we've lived in so many places in the US, we have a lot of friends. Sort of scattered across the country. And we tried to see a lot of them before we left. So, yeah, we said goodbye to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Are your mum and dad elderly, Maile?
They're in their 70s.
Right,
so
okay. Still able to travel and, you know, are they up for travel? And
they're both up for travel. Also said goodbye to, I've got one grandparent still living.
Right.
So that was hard because it's not likely I'll see her again. You know, she's in mid-90s at this point. There were some of those goodbyes where you sort of go, I may not see this person again. I mean, even though my parents are in good health, you know, there's no guarantees, or even some friends, you know, they may not visit when we go back to the US. We may not have time to see them. So there's definitely an element when you're saying goodbye of, yeah, this could be it, which is hard.
Yeah, that is the hard part of saying goodbye, especially to more of the elderly people, because you just think, how many times will I see you again? You know, it might be never. It might only be 3 or 4 times that we're together again. You know, in the same room. You just don't. That side of it is hard. Yeah.
What about you, Brian? Who did you leave behind?
Yeah, I left, same thing, lots of friends that we got to see, and my brother and his wife and my sister and her husband and my nephew, who I actually didn't get to see, but he's young enough that I know he's going to come out here and stay with us.
Yeah.
So I'm not too worried about him. And then my mom and my dad. One of the nice things that we did was we took a lot of time to actually go and visit them. So we spent time at my parents' place, and I was able to have all my siblings come and visit at the same time. So it's kind of like a little mini family reunion, which is great. And then spent time with her dad at her dad's house.
And then with my mom and my grandma.
Yeah, that was the most important thing. And for anyone watching, just make sure you take the time. Even if it's going to cost you extra money, just do it because it's worth it. Those moments that we had with them were precious, and it's good.
Can I ask how your family took it when you said we're moving to New Zealand? You know, how did you break it to them, and how did they take it?
It's all your fault, Brian.
Yeah, they all blame me. No, we're kind of fun. I mean, like we said earlier, we're gypsies. We love moving around, so our families are kind of used to it.
Right.
I mean, at one point, when I first moved to Seattle, I went and told my parents, "Hey, I'm moving to Seattle," and took off. And I remember saying goodbye to them in front of the garage door, and it was really sad. And, and then I'm like, I'm moving to San Diego, and like, okay, and yeah, so it's something they're kind of used to at this point.
We also have been warning them since we got together.
Yeah.
So for about 4 years, hey, our end goal, once we save up money and pay off debt and like get a job and all that stuff, is to end up in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So we tried to warn them really early on.
Yeah, really at the beginning of our relationship, kind of early.
Yeah, like 2 months into our relationship.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah, and then we also, I'm sure they also are like, okay, because we'll say things like, I think we're going to buy a school bus and live out of a school bus.
Convert it
to a schoolie.
and travel the country.
Yeah. And then we're like, we're going to get a
van life.
Van life, smaller vans. We're going to live it. And they're like, oh, okay, sure. We're like, we're going to move to Canada for a couple of years. And so when we said New Zealand, I'm sure they're like, even as we got closer and we're telling them, they're probably like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
I think when I said, hey, I actually have a job offer.
Yeah, that was when it got real for them.
Then our family, it was a whole new level of, they're going to do this.
You did something very differently to what normal people do. You're not normal, you two, are you?
We're not normal.
You sold everything, didn't you, in your house? And you've come to New Zealand with 5 bags, is it? And that's it? You are gypsies, I reckon.
Yeah.
We are gypsies.
Yeah.
We ended up using 6 check bags.
Yeah. 2 carry-ons, 4 carry-ons.
4
actually.
carry-ons.
So did you pay extra for those? What did that cost?
For the bags, it was like $70, I think, each. 70 or 75 US dollars each, which isn't that big a deal in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
Shipping, we also shipped 3 boxes, 15-inch by 15-inch by 15-inch boxes. And those were about $300 US dollars to ship.
So I'm getting a really good, clear picture of you, I think, now. So you're 2 travelers, obviously. You love to travel and you love adventure. And you seem to me the kind of people that don't mind letting go and moving on. So you don't hold on to things. I love that, actually.
Yeah.
I love that philosophy.
That minimalist style living. If you just can, it's great when you get rid of all that clutter, isn't it? Throw it all away.
Yeah.
When I
sell it or whatever.
Yeah, we've both kind of been that way. When I took off to New Zealand the first time, I got rid of, I would say, 90% of my stuff and just got a really tiny storage space for like my vinyl records, my turntables, and some little things and some clothes and stuff. But then when we merged our stuff and when we took off to Vermont, we got rid of all of our stuff again because the plan was we're going to go to New Zealand at some point. So we don't put all of our stuff.
I love getting rid of stuff. It makes you feel lighter, doesn't it? It's just brilliant. Yeah. So can you just carry on the story then? So you've sold all your stuff. Did you rent a car and then go around the country and say goodbye to your family? Tell me about that. What did you do?
Or actually, no, we gave our car away to a friend who needed one in Vermont. And we had my small 2-door Jeep Wrangler soft top. And we packed that thing... The day we're packing it, we pull all of our stuff outside and she sees it and she's like, it's not going to fit.
There's no way.
It's not going to fit. I'm like, honey, I got this. And we pretty much fit all of it except for like 1 box worth of stuff. And that thing was like, when you're driving down the road and the back of it's just sunk down. So we drove that down from Vermont to Virginia. And that was a very nerve-wracking drive. And then we unloaded it all at her dad's place. And her dad loaned us his super nice car. To drive over to Nashville and see family and friends.
So where's
Richmond too?
Where's the Jeep now?
It's at my brother's house.
All right.
He's holding on to it for me for at least a year, or at least until we get our skilled visas.
Yeah.
At which point I'll let it go. But most things in my life are easy to let go of, but that car, it's not. I've grown really attached to it. I've done so much traveling in that thing and have so many memories with that thing.
Yeah, you can bring it over here. You can always ship it.
Oh, so it's the other side though, left-hand drive, isn't it?
Because there's lots of left-hand drive cars in New Zealand. Yeah.
For some reason, when I looked it up, it looked really. We'll talk later about it, but it seemed like it wasn't a possibility.
No, you can do it.
So Maile, can I just ask you, because again, I loved how you were telling everyone about that you were having these dreams, like almost like panicky dreams. We've all had them, haven't we? Those fear dreams. And I know that you said on, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but I know that you said to Brian on one of your videos that you felt like you were being rushed to say goodbye to your family and you two had to communicate better because you didn't feel that you were getting the time. Can you just talk about that and the emotions that you were feeling and, how was all that?
Yeah, that was really early on. So the first people that we saw were my mom and my grandma. We still had the Jeep and we still had like a month of traveling and saying goodbye to people. We were planning on leaving sort of early in the morning. And I just felt like I want more time. I wanted like a few more hours. And I was just feeling a little rushed by Brian. I don't think it was intentional. I think he was more worried about timing and not driving at night. And we're supposed to be here, at tomorrow at this time. So we just kind of had we try to communicate a lot what's going on with the other person and with us without judgment. So I just told Brian, like, I'm feeling rushed and I'm having a hard time. And, if you can support me more on this. And Brian's great because he listens and he apologized. And he's like, okay, new rule. If somebody needs more time with the family, the partner has to just accept it. Like, understand, accept it, and work together. And then it was much smoother after that.
Yeah, I think a big thing was just slowing down. we'd been so rush to that point. Trying to make sure we get all the visa stuff done, all the paperwork submitted, everything booked, everything packed, getting rid of stuff that we still had to get rid of. We still had stuff we had to get rid of in Vermont too. But it was so much like, get it done. And then once we kind of got to that point, it was like having to take a breath, slow it down. Again, just communicate and just make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah. And just enjoy the moments, because really the 2 to 3 months leading up to when we started our big goodbye road trip were just nuts. I just want to tell anybody out there going through it, it's just going to be nuts and stressful, and there's a lot to figure out, and it's okay. Like, you'll get through it. Just communicate.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath where you can. Yeah.
That's such good advice. That's such good advice.
It is, because everything's going at roller coaster speed, isn't it? Like, and then, you have got to put the brakes on a little bit and just enjoy that last month instead of just, because you want to wish it away because you want to get to New Zealand, but you want to see everybody as well, don't you?
Yeah, that's definitely the hard part. You're like, oh, I just want to be there. Yeah. But you're right. Yeah, exactly. You just want to also make sure you're spending that time and saying goodbye.
Who were the hardest people to say goodbye to, would you say?
For me, it was my parents.
Right.
I mean, I think kind of what we touched on earlier, I hope they live for another 20 years, but you just never know at that age. Not that you guys are old, Mom and Dad, if you're watching this. But it's just hard saying goodbye to them. I've done it, like I said, I've done it a bunch of times, but this one was really hard because if something ever happens, right now, I can't easily hop on a plane and go back. No. If COVID wasn't here, I wouldn't be too concerned about it. But with quarantine still being in effect.
Yeah, it's made it that extra difficult and stressful.
It does. But the thing is, nowadays with the likes of this, where you can Zoom people or you can, Skype them, FaceTime them. Are your mum and dad okay with that sort of tech and stuff?
I was going to say, how did they?
Our, living through COVID in the US or through the whole time, it was, you got used to that, so it was kind of a test run for this or practice for this, which was good. And I think finding little things that you can do often with them is good. My brother, my dad, and I, we go on walks a lot of times. So in the morning we'll connect up on a group chat or a group call and walk for a couple hours and talk.
That's good.
Perfect. Really nice. Perfect. Yeah. And what about
and
you,
finding
Maile?
that routine.
Did you put any strategies in place that you'd say, okay, we'll do this, or we'll make sure we make the effort? Or
I told my dad, Dad, you've got to text more, because he would rather call than text, and I'm like, that's not going to work as well in New Zealand. So you got to get better about texting, but also like every other week we'll schedule a Zoom call. So we've talked about actually getting like a whiteboard and like our family's names and the schedule for like, okay, we're going to Zoom, these people this week, and make sure we message them and send photos. And we'll have to put in a little bit more effort than we did in the US just because of the time difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I know when we went traveling the world with the kids and everything, instead of like doing it individual people, we just set up a big group chat.
Yeah.
And
like Brian
luckily most people were on Apple devices, so we just did it through iMessage. But we could have done it through WhatsApp or
it's amazing what you can do now,
and it was great. So you only have to send one picture, everyone's got it, like,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that worked really well. I know it's not much different than Facebook, but I'm not on Facebook. So I just, it was easy for me just to send one picture to everybody. That makes it a little bit easier. At least they can do it. A lot of people go, oh, don't text me at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Shut up.
Take your phone off.
But this is us eating our ice cream.
This is more important. Get out of bed and answer the phone.
So with everything that was going on, you guys, and I can imagine, I know it was an emotional roller coaster for you. I know. Did at any time, did you think, oh, this isn't worth it, I don't want to go? Did either of you ever wobble and go, no?
I had a brief moment.
Did you?
I don't...
Tell us, Brian, come on.
I just remember there was one moment I think it was when I was at my parents' place, and just there's one time where my dad, we're all in the family room, and at one point my dad just got up and walked out onto the back porch and started watering his flowers, and I remember just watching him, and it seemed odd to me. So I went out there to check on him, and I was like, "Hey, are you okay? What's going on?" And he just looked at me and he just started crying, and I was just like, it broke my heart, and I just think that in that brief moment, I just questioned. I was just hoping that I was doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad, my parents have told me multiple times, like, if something ever happens to us when you're gone, don't feel regret. Don't be upset by that. Like, we want you to be happy. We want you to do this. We want you to have your adventures. We don't want you to change your life for us. And that meant a lot to me, but it's still hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
Your parents sound like cool people. They really do. Yeah.
We both are really lucky with our parents.
Yeah.
I never had any moments of doubt, but just sort of like, oh, this is really hard to say goodbye. I think maybe harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And my dad kept tearing up as well the final couple days.
And when he dropped us off at the airport, I was like,
It was heartbreaking.
Do you know, it's one of those things, it almost puts, I've said this to you before, didn't I? It almost puts you off going back, like for us to go back to the UK, because I can't face saying goodbye again, you know? It's almost like, no, I don't want to do it. It's just, it's easier to have this relationship sometimes than to have to, that's a really chicken thing to say, I suppose, because you've just got to...
It is, but it's truthful though, isn't it? You know, it's a big expense to go back. It takes a lot of time, and, you know, you don't want to go back just for a week. You want to go back for at least 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that, because it's, you know, it's that big travel thing, isn't it?
And there's that awkward thing. I don't know if you found this. I found it with my brother, and we were trying to be normal. We were trying to act as if, like, I remember going for a coffee with him, and we were trying to be normal. Like, oh, you're not going to the other side of the world tomorrow, and I'm never going to see you for, you know, probably 10 years. We're just having a coffee and a scone, and, you know, and it's just all normal. And that was just freaking me out, because it was just like, I just wanted to start crying and go,
oh. So there's just one thing said, and it's like,
No, honestly, I hate to say this. I don't want to be like, make it sound like I'm enjoying your upset, but I've really enjoyed watching your guys' journey and you being so honest, because like I said before, not many people are, you know, they won't tell you the truth, and they won't reveal, they won't be so vulnerable. And it really helps other people when you watch someone else's vulnerability, because you just think, you know, thank God it's not just me, sort of thing, you know?
And I think too that for the people who are leaving, the expectation is, oh, you're going to New Zealand. Like, what do you have to be sad about or upset about? Or it's your choice to leave, and you're going on this great adventure, and we wish we could get there, but we can't. So it's almost like you feel like you don't have permission to be stressed, be sad, be anxious. And I wanted to be really honest about that, because it's such a myth, you know?
Yeah.
But that's true.
That's a
I remember people
point.
saying to me, oh, you're just lucky.
Yeah.
And you're like, we've really worked hard for this. Like, you know, to get to this point in our lives where we can go and try a different country, like, you know? It wasn't luck. You know, the Maori, you might think, a bit of luck in this, but not. There's a lot of hard work to get to move to the other side of the world, isn't it? Like, you know?
And I hadn't thought of that. It's a really good point, Maile, because it's so true. You know, people do tend to think like, oh, what are you worried about? You know, your choice. You don't have to go, you know, and
stay
that,
here with us.
It stabs you, doesn't it? It really stabs you in the heart, because you're like, oh, yeah, it is. Even now, you'll find now when you call back home, you daren't say, or you don't want to say, oh, you know, this is happening and that's happening, because it's almost like they're waiting for it so they can go, well, your choice, you know, you can always come back.
Exactly. We told you.
So you have to try and
it's
keep
just going to be the same over there as what it is here.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Oh, guys, absolutely love chatting to you. Right, so I've got so much more to say, but I'm going to have to wrap it up. But on that first morning when you woke up and you've gone through all that emotional and crying and bad dreams and everything that you've been through, when you woke up in the first morning in New Zealand, tell me how you felt.
Go ahead.
So I don't know if I mentioned it, but that morning I her and I kind of have a delayed reaction to things. She experiences things first, and then I kind of experience them after the fact.
It's like processing. I'm more of I process things before they happen.
Yeah, I process them after.
Yeah, he waits till they happen. So like a lot of the grief about leaving, I was processing months before we started to say goodbye.
Yeah.
And Brian started processing on the trip.
Yeah.
And then once we got our negative COVID test, once we hit the final hurdle
Before our flight
of like, this is happening. Once we got that negative COVID test, I was already celebrating.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I'm mentally there. We did it. Like, we did it. It was such an amazing feeling when you realize all of our hard work finally paid off. And Brian was kind of like, yeah.
So that morning when I woke up, I was like, we're here. We did it. I remember waking up, I was like so excited. I was like, hey, honey. She's like, okay, honey.
Yeah. And I was like, I know. I celebrated like 5 days ago.
Miley's in the regret stage now.
Where are we? But what's interesting is like day 2 or 3 of quarantine, I was sitting on the same couch and I just had this moment of like all the weight and the stress lifted. And I was like, we're here. We did it. And it felt so amazing. I actually started crying. I was just like tears of relief. And so I think that's when it really hit me, a few days ago of like, we're here. When we leave here, life is normal. We won't have the COVID stress, the Delta variant, the anxiety of living in the US. That's a whole nother topic, but it's very stressful living there. And since then I've just felt like so good, so relieved to be here.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that one. I think once we get out of the hotel, maybe I'll start feeling that.
You're still annoyed at being served Jim Beam on the plane, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Jim, come on.
Stop bourbon.
Oh. So before we go and before we say goodbye to you, what do you hope your new life in New Zealand will look like? What do you hope for?
Outdoor adventures.
Mm-hmm.
I really got into hiking in Vermont a lot. And I would just want to do that a whole lot more here. And the outdoor life. And just less stress, less anxiety.
Slowing it down.
Slowing it way down.
Enjoying.
Slowing it down, enjoying life. Penguins.
Mm-hmm. Someday she'll show you her penguin, her penguin. Penguin dance noise, whatever.
Yeah.
Not on this call. That's a little too
Come
weird.
on, Miley. I think you should get up on that bed and show us that.
No. We'll save it. Something to look forward to.
Okay.
After a few bourbons.
Yeah.
And I'd love to talk to you about the whole US thing. I'd love to talk to you about that. I know
he's like saying, like a perception of America. I know I've been there, but, back in the 80s before I never ever went to America, it was a Steven Spielberg movie. It was E.T., it was Close Encounters. That's how all Americans lived, and that's how everyone celebrated the, Thanksgiving and, all those sort of things, Halloween and stuff. And it's just like, and then when you start talking to Americans, it's like, it's not as easy as what it looks in the movies, like, Yeah. No.
So we will definitely get together. Future podcast.
Future discussion.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to like more of a work-life balance. And Dunedin was our number one choice, and was able to get a job there just because of the wildlife around there. I'm a little obsessed with penguins, so I'll just throw it out there. The nature, the wildlife, and it just looks like a really cool city. Yeah. So
it does.
And they've got a lot of vegetarian options too.
Yeah, we're vegetarian.
We're big
You're
foodies.
vegetarian, right? Yeah. Oh, that's going to be great.
Yeah.
Being vegetarian in New Zealand, I would imagine, is a dream because
it's getting better and better, isn't it?
Is.
It really is.
Yeah.
Real big into it and vegan.
The vegans getting bigger over here and everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got your own YouTube channel and it's fabulous. Like I say, you're really honest and you really show it as it is.
I was your 13th subscriber.
Yeah.
Ooh, really?
Should get him a shirt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just let people know where they can find that YouTube channel. What's the name of your YouTube channel?
It is Zoomies Abroad, and the whole point, it sort of came about accidentally, but I just wanted to share our journey of like wanting to move to New Zealand all the way to, I mean, we'll keep posting, but I'm a big believer in being honest about what you're feeling, allowing yourself to feel what you're feeling, not judging it, but not clinging to it either. You know, I think there's a lot of healing to be involved in like being honest about what you're actually going through. So that was just the whole point of this channel of like, let's keep it real. Let's help other people. And I didn't think anybody would actually watch it. So it's kind of like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
People actually watch our videos.
That's fantastic. And I think you're going to fit right in New Zealand because New Zealanders love authenticity and they love people to just be real and not be, you know.
Yeah, and embrace the country. It's
Embrace,
exactly like
the
you're about to
nature
do, like, you know?
Yeah. So we wish you all the best. We cannot wait to catch up with you in person and have that bourbon and just that chat. And if you will allow us, we'd love to interview you again in another 3 months, say, when you've settled in Dunedin.
Or in a
and
month or whatever. See how it goes,
Well, how about tomorrow?
Whenever.
So what about in the morning?
What are you doing in an hour?
A lot will change.
Well, Brian, have you caught up with Maile yet?
I finally felt it.
Can I just ask you one question, Brian? What's a good bourbon?
Yes. What is it like? A brand of a good bourbon?
Yeah, or what do you want out of a bourbon?
It depends. I like different types of bourbons. I'd say my all-time favorite is Four Roses Single Barrel.
Right.
It's just a awesome bourbon. But I'm not too picky with bourbons as long as they're unique. I don't like all the big brand name ones. Although Four Roses is a pretty big brand, but they make really good bourbon.
Okay, guys. Well, on that note, on that
And you
alcoholic
do
note.
realise you can make your own bourbon in New Zealand. Do you know that?
I did. No. Should we make bourbon together, Brian?
Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea.
Yes.
You can buy stills and everything, and it's legal to brew your own alcohol in New Zealand, like proper, spirit. Yeah.
Can we call it Brian's bourbon? Although I don't think we can call it bourbon.
Two Brians.
Yes, you can call it
Whiskey.
Whiskey.
Well,
Whiskey,
that sounds good.
Yeah. Well, just call it
Brian's bourbon in quotation marks.
BB whiskey. There you go.
Oh, I like that.
That's a bit of bourbon in there. Let's get into it. Let's start a brand.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, guys. Well, we're going to leave it there, and we'll speak to you soon. And Brian can think about his bourbon business that he's going to make.
I'll send you some books.
Enjoy the rest of your quarantine. Enjoy Dunedin, and we'll catch up with you real soon.
Hey, great to see you.
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Thanks,
bye.
Alvin. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Daddy, I love him!
Mother thanks you.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Hello.